giving you a voice,
making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
All right, so now we're going to be at the top 30. So for the top 30, we're still going to have, until at least the 11th team, one judge talk about it, but they're going to talk about them in just a little bit more detail than we did for the rest of the robots. Starting off at the 30th place, we have Team 187, which is made up of Connor McBride from FRC 166. Garrison, start it off.
All right. Yeah. So 187 is a cool looking robot. A lot of creativity here. It's a pretty different robot. Their elevators kind of facing the other way in their robot. We saw a few teams do that this year in FRC. They've got a cool handoff system, which I like. Team handoff was pretty big this year too. And I mean, they took a lot of cool ideas from this year's FRC and, you know, made them pretty solid. Good detail on this one. Creativity was really where they made up most of their points though. And decently effective. I feel like this would actually play the game pretty well. Anything that could drop the disc vertically, I felt more comfortable with. I think I tended to give higher effectiveness scores to those robots. But yeah, this one I just felt like was okay. It was missing in some detail and execution, but yeah, I felt like this was one of the better ones to play the game.
Yeah, definitely really creative. All right, so that's going to move us to the 29th ranked team, which is Team 222, and is made up of Clayton Haight and Catherine Gia from Team 1325. Casey, how do you feel about it?
So Team 222 had an interesting take. One of the few teams that we saw trying to emulate the 148 round tube elevator style. So that was kind of interesting. Along with that, they went with the swerve drive. The intake looked like it would be decently effective, but with the frame pieces of it coming out about as far as the wheels, sometimes it seems like it might end up pushing the discs away from it. Additionally, this looks like kind of a beefy intake on the end of this wrist. So this was one of a few of them that has kind of an aggressive amount of stuff going on the wrist that might be a little hard to deal with, a little bit too much to control at times. But other than that, they had some good detail in some areas. Obviously, you know, with more time, they were going to be able to round it out a little bit more. It looked like they were lacking some of their electronics and elevator gearbox, but this was a really good start, and I thought that this would be an interesting robot to play the game, at least to be able to score well into the game board.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's going to move us to our 28th ranked team, which is Team 249. It is made up of Kevin McKenzie from FRC 3015 and Aryan Argawal from FRC 5417.
Yeah, so this was an interesting robot. It had actually two different pickup heights, one for if they were going to go to the low goal and one if they were going to go up to the game board. I thought it was, you know, an interesting take on doing the human player loadout. It was a lot to take on. They lacked some detail in kind of the electronics component of it. They did have a little bit of support for their elevator if they used their local kind of mechanism to support the elevator. They needed some more detail kind of around that. They had a level 1 hang, I guess, if you will, that was kind of just a Velcroed hook and a winch system. I don't know how I feel about extrusion-based elevators. These guys tackled it. But, overall, decent robot, good attempt at playing the game. Some things they can definitely improve on, but, a good start for sure.
Definitely. All right, that's going to move us to our 27th ranked team, which is Team 236, made up of Robert Deigel and Martin Liu from Team 3256.
So I actually liked this bot a lot. It was pretty cool. I thought a couple of things that they could have, changed was, first of all, they used the wrong version of the single-speed gearbox. There's like a West Coast Drive version of that that make your life easier. Their wheelbase was too small together. They could have moved the wheels out further. The intake, you'll notice, is a problem with the red wheels. They actually touch the ground. So the aluminum doesn't actually cup around the wheels. So half the time when you're intaking, I saw this a lot this weekend, where the wheels would touch the ground before the body of the intake would. So you're probably drawing way too many amps trying to pick up the object. And also only one Frisbee pickup, a little low for me. And the other problem was I've seen quite a few teams on their arm joints use 25 chain with no counterbalance or nothing. You're putting a lot of load through a small piece of chain. So you're probably best off sizing up the 35 chain or something different. Or the worst I saw this weekend was people using timing belts at 18 teeth pulleys. The timing pulley belt isn't probably going to work in that case. So overall, I thought that was really cool. I thought a lot of potential. Oh, and my favorite thing, the one Clint says, there is zero support for the elevator. So you're probably going to snap it at the base like another one. So definitely recommend taking the feedback and getting better.
Definitely. All right, let's move to our 26th ranked team, which is Team 229, made up of Abin Bond and Jonathan Myers from FRC 4655.
All right, yeah. So first, I want to say nice team name. Their team name, I think, was like Nerds of a Feather or something like that. I really liked it. Sorry, I had to call that out. All these teams had team names, and most of them were pretty terrible. So I enjoyed the good pun. And okay, yeah, so they had pretty good detail throughout the robot in most of their mechanisms. The climbing was kind of the exception to that. They were lacking some stuff there. It was a kind of cool climbing mechanism. I mean, you can see it on the back there. But it wasn't quite fully fleshed out. I don't know if you can see their intake real well, but it was kind of this two-sided cage thing. It was cool. A lot of teams did these two-sided intakes where like they could fit one disc on the left and one disc on the right. I don't know how y'all feel about them. I was pretty skeptical about driving with those. I felt like it would be really hard to like keep track of which side you have a disc. You always have to approach a disc with one side of your robot. You have to it seemed like a weird thing, and I guess I hadn't seen a whole lot of teams do that sort of intake in FRC. So they kind of lost a little bit of points on effectiveness there for me. And then they had a balls. Oh yeah, okay. So their mechanism were facing like perpendicular to the way you would think they would on this robot. So they're sideways. So the robot is optimized, if you will, to go like along the F4 board, which if you're going to do Mechanim, I guess in this game is probably the smart way to do it. I still don't like it, but if you're going to do Mechanim, I think this is the right way to do it. And then they had a ball screw lift, which was kind of cool. I did some basic back of the napkin calculations, and it felt really, really slow. For this, like it felt like their lift was going to take several seconds to go up all the way, which immediately loses a ton on effectiveness for me. I don't know. Maybe it'll be faster than the Mechanim drive to get there. I think that's not going to be too quick. Trying to strafe sideways, but yeah. So I mean, they actually did all right. They did real good in creativity. Did all right in effectiveness. Did okay in detail. Sort of, you know, we're getting to the top half of teams. These teams are actually doing pretty good work on CAD here.
Yep, and that's going to move us to our 25th team, which is Team 256, made up of Alev Orfi and Mark Dergij.
So 256, I actually liked the bot a lot. It had a lot of cool small design stuff. I like the 2v4 similar hanging hooks. The one thing I was concerned about was the telescopic part. It looked pretty flimsy to me, but just that they need some work on it. I did like the fact that I could probably score out through the back. I think the intake needed a little bit more work. It was probably hard to pick up. I assume that this was human loaded most of the time. But beyond that, I really actually enjoyed the detail on this. You know, small things for me like always bug me. Missing gussets, missing some of the detailed holes. But beyond that, this rule was actually really cool. But what, 256, I guess?
Yeah, we skipped one.
We skipped one. But we'll come back to it. But on this robot, I think the one thing that needs to get improved is the intake. I think the front roller either needs to be spring-loaded so it can actually grab the frisbees correctly or go to some sort of squishy wheels. One of the two should happen. So, but beyond that, the roll is really cool. I liked it.
All right, so we're going to move. Yes. So we're going to move back to, actually, just a slight error there, with Team 252, made up of Spencer Bendiera and Salah from 1374. They came in the 25th ranked spot. Yeah, so the two we skipped over were Team 252 and 167. Yes, so 256 is in 23rd place. Casey, can you move to our 25th ranked team?
Yeah, so Team 252 was another one of the robots that tried to avoid having to use an elevator with a creative packaging of an arm design. Also, aesthetically, this robot, just a lot going on there. Really aggressive colors are definitely sure to get noticed in competition. In terms of the detail, I like the amount of lightning patterns. Like they were really aggressive, making sure to put them on a whole bunch of things. But It seemed like they almost might have went too aggressive in some places. I'd be a little bit worried that the lightning patterns actually would have sacrificed some of the strength. And if they ever took an impact with that arm, you might see some potential folding. Also, some of the elements were really good, but some of the elements were still missing their fastening and retainment methods. In terms of effectiveness, this intake looked like it would work okay, but may require a little bit of difficulty with alignment. I think some of the top roller intakes, like we saw a lot of in 2013, may have been a little bit more effective at capturing these than some of these side rollers, which it seemed like a lot of people were inspired by this past year, 2018 intakes. Additionally, this is one of those that the arm, there are a lot of different lengths. So I think controls wise, it's going to be a little bit complex to make sure that everything is in the proper place at the proper time.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to move to our 24th ranked team, which is 167, made up of Jason Farnham from FRC 5818.
Yeah. So I actually love this robot. I mean, I'm a big fan of teams that, keep in mind their resources and design to fit those. This is a simple game board squaring robot. It's one disc at a time. Very controllable, very simple in essence. And this reminds me a lot of like 1503 from 2011. They kept it simple. If they could make it wicked fast, they'd be wicked effective, right? I thought this team did very well. With the time constraints, I thought the detail was pretty good. They supported their like arm shoulder structure well. There's a little bit of detail missing on some of the power transfer mechanisms and things like that. But overall, I thought it was a very good single disc scoring robot for that game board. You make do with what you got, and I think this team did a very good job of creating kind of a low to mid resource robot.
Yep. All right. So we already touched on our 23rd ranked team. RC did. That was team 256 once again. So we're going to move right along to our 22nd ranked team, which is team 56, made up of Mason Mitchell from FRC 900.
All right. Yeah. So this is a really good looking robot for one person, especially. It honestly probably could have been higher when I judged it. I think when a couple other judges, the CAD was a little broken. There were some missing references and such. But I mean, you can see the render there. It looks like a really good low goal type robot. That 1678 style intake from Stronghold, I actually think would be really effective in this game. I thought there were a few teams that did that, and I thought that was kind of the way to go. Real smart there. Little swerve drive. I mean, this would be like, to me, this is like the 7179 of this game. Like really good intake, really quick, can move around the field, can, play just about everything they need to. And I really liked this robot, actually.
Yeah, no, it looks really, really cool. All right. So that's going to move us to our 21st ranked team, which is 102, made up of Kian Asit from team 5663. Casey, if you could just give us a little bit of info on that.
He's muted.
Muted?
Can you hear me now? Yep, there we go. All right, sorry about that. So team 102 was another one of those teams that tried to avoid needing the elevator, going instead for a single jointed arm along with a wrist along the front end. So one of the concerns with that was that it may have a risk of extending outside of the legal extension limit. But beyond that, this robot had a lot of really great detail. There was all the electronics were in there. You can see all these lightning patterns. They have the different colors in there. The detail was really good on this one. One of the concerns, similar to some of the other ones, to kind of work with that intake setup that they have, there's this big cutout in the front of the robot, so it may be a little bit flexible up there. There are the braces going above that will help with that a little bit, but you still may see some flexibility that a belly pin would help out if it could be worked in there. This was another one that the intake looks like it would work relatively well. May require a little bit of practice to line up with because it's packaged inside of a lot of the support, so it's not as wide as it possibly could be, but it seemed like it would be effective. And then lastly, their climber seemed pretty simple, seemed like it'd be something that'd be reliable to just slam the level 1 climb at the end of the match and always try and guarantee those points, which was a good simple thing to throw in there, similar to what a lot of people ended up doing with the 2013 game. Just lock in that level 1 climb at the end of the match with something that doesn't take a lot out of the rest of your robot.
So we're going to be at our top 20 right now, and we're going to start it off with Team 228, made up of Theo Emery and Jacob Cook from FRC 4999.
All right, so this is another team that I thought had a great name. It's NASA Secret Seesaw, which anybody who's familiar with the Robonauts practice facility will get that. I thought that was pretty funny. This is a robot that I thought excelled in the creativity aspect of things. They have this kind of cascading conveyor belt system. They do suffer a little bit, kind of to what Garrison was saying earlier about not dropping the discs into the goal. They have to kind of eject them up and out somehow. And so that kind of detail was lacking a little bit, and also, would hurt their effectiveness. But I thought the collector was solid. I thought, the transfer from the collector to that conveyor system was decent. Their scouting sheet said they had a level 1 climb. I didn't quite pick that up in the CAD that I looked at, but anybody with an elevator can do a level 1 climb. It's no problem. Overall, great robot. Their effectiveness also got hit, from me because of the Mecanum drivetrain. Anybody who knows me will know that I'm not a fan of that. So everybody basically got a -4 for effectiveness.
Well, that's going to take a hit. So that moves us to our 19th ranked team, which is 179 rather, made up of Jonathan Rogers from FRC 2158.
I actually thought this is one of the slickest bots I've seen all weekend. They were very cool. I think a couple things for me to highlight that should improve upon. I think on the shoulder joint itself, they're using solid bar. I think that you get better off by using tubing or something else. I really enjoyed the fact that they could intake normally and then flip the intake around and then dump upside down, which I thought was really cool. Like everybody else said earlier, I think there should be a level 1 climb on here somewhere. It's so easy to add it on at this point. Beyond that, it's pretty. A couple of things that for the viewers at home, when you're using some of the gearboxes and you're using aluminum gears on the final stage for the super small gears, you should probably use the Vex Pro steel gears to make sure you don't shred them or rip them off. I saw 2 main teams at championships. Even our alliance partner this year, we had to go out and find steel gears at championship level. So that's kind of a small thing that you don't take into consideration now, but it affects it later. And then also they had a plate on the outside that they could have piloted the bearing on the inside of the tubing as well. Just small detail I thought this robot could have ranked higher for me personally. I was a fan of it, but a lot of small details for me, missing gussets, missing electronics, just small things, I guess, that could have done better on. Especially when you compare to some of the robots that later on did a very good job with the details. So for me, I think I got a 7 on effectiveness because of no anger. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, this one's super cool. All right, so that's going to move us to team 26, made up of Bethany Dowd and Andrew Brown from FRC 5568 in the 18th spot.
Yeah, so as soon as Tyler pulls this one up, yeah, there it is. You see, this is kind of a unique design. They went for creativity here, clearly. And it looks pretty good. They did a lot in this render, you can see going on. But I thought it was a pretty good robot. They've got this floor intake there on the left. They have like a low goal scoring thing on the right. They've got this incline elevator. There's a lot of stuff, and they have this other elevator. I'm skeptical that in a real season, I would look at this and go, no, you should never build this robot. CAD wise, they did a pretty good job. You should never build this robot though. It's got so much going on in the game. It would be really, really hard for this to actually be productive. There's a couple of just very bizarre things going on that I think kind of reflect the design. Like you can see on top of the far tower. I have to clarify which tower it is. You can see the red line motors just hanging off the top of the thing, which as far as I'm concerned is where they belong, but that wouldn't work. Hey. Right. So the wheels are in like a really weird spot. So I have a couple of problems with this robot. I actually gave it a pretty good score.
The red lines weren't it though, right?
What?
No, keep going. My bad.
Yeah, no. So how he took points off anytime somebody used Mechanism wheels, anytime somebody uses the Andy Mark products or Redline motors, just auto 0. That's not done. I do not do that. Don't.
I had a feeling that's why the score sheet was a little deflated over there.
No, that's not
the
true.
The views of our guests do not necessarily reflect the thoughts and opinions of First Updates Now.
I'm totally joking, y'all. Don't worry. I did judge everybody fairly. I mean, when teams get their comments back, they can check me. But yeah, honestly, I did think this is a really good robot. I don't think it would be that effective because of how much stuff there is, and it'd be really, really hard to make. That was my biggest issue on it.
All right, so there goes any jobs at Andy Mark for Garrison in the future. And we're going to move to the 17th ranked team, which is Team 214, made up of Cam Ogden and Drew Pang from FRC 3324.
So Team 214, I thought that this was kind of an interesting design. I really liked this robot. The drivetrain was a bit simple, but seemed like it should be effective. The main focus of this robot is that it's going to be a human player cycling specialist, which I thought was kind of a cool idea to keep it simple, eliminate some complexities. They don't necessarily need to intake off the ground because the only source of discs is from the human player station until they're dropped. So although it's going to struggle once, later in the match that starts to be more frequent, early on in the match, they're going to be able to cycle just as well as anyone else because that's where all the discs are coming from. Yeah, so it seemed like they were missing a few of their connections on their gearboxes and things like that. A few more details would have helped iron things out, but overall to start with, it was a good kind of simple robot, but it would still be able to accomplish all the aspects of the game.
Definitely. All right, that's going to move us to our 16th ranked team, which is Team 180, made up of Ryan Moore from FRC 2102.
Yeah, so this was actually a pretty interesting collection from this team, which I picked out kind of things from different robots that were kind of unique. This intake to me was a little bit different than some of the other ones. They had it split down the middle so that when you intake the first one on either side, you would have to intake the second one on the opposite side, which I thought maybe introduced some driver complexity that I'm not a huge fan of. I like to keep robots simple for our drivers to drive. But, if it works for that team, then it works for that team, and that's fine. Overall, I thought the robot was fairly detailed. Drivetrain was well done. I do have to say, holy reflections, Batman, on their renders. I've never seen bumpers that have been near polished before. But I guess that might help you stay out of T-bones. I'm not sure. Overall, great robot. Very well done. A few things here and there to increase the effectiveness of the robot, I think would have gone a long way. But definitely a good start.
Yep. All right, so that's going to move us to our top 15. And starting off our top 15 is 219, made up of Zeb Blank and Andrew Quartz from FRC 340.
I thought this robot was really creative. This is the only single-sided off-to-the-side elevator I think I saw out of all the judging that I've done this weekend. I think problems that I had with it, the belly pan could have been longer to help to support more of the robot, missing drive shafts. I think in the front, you got to put your belt runs in because it was kind of confusing to see what stuff linked up with what. I thought the intake could be pretty effective. The elevator, as Clint has said multiple times, needs some angle supports. It's probably going to fall over anytime soon. And then I'm not really a huge fan of off-the-side elevators. I just think they look so unsymmetrical. So not really a fan. But, hey, top 15. That's it for me.
All right, so that's going to move us to our 14th ranked team, which is Team 200, made up of Andrew Pasco from FRC 4750.
Yeah, so this is a great one-person robot. I'll start by saying that. It's a good-looking robot. It's got an elevator. I'm a little skeptical about the intake. The wheels aren't really the leading edge. So it'd have to kind of scoop and then pull in. I don't really like that as a design. I think my biggest problem with this robot is it was one of my least favorite Vex Pro applications. All weekend it had 1,000 to 1 gear reduction on their pivot arm. Which, like if you stack those VPs up, it's like as tall as my face is. And it's unadvisable for a number of reasons, but yeah. Oh, and it was on a mini sim. So not a huge fan of that. You had a couple of interferences. The 775s were hitting on the drive gearbox. And then the structure for the hang worried me too. I was a little worried that it could actually hold 120 pounds plus batteries and bumpers. But hey, at least you threw the 1-point climb on there. We've seen a lot of teams that either said they could do a 1-point climb and didn't, or had an elevator and didn't bother with the 1-point climb. So at least it's on there. Whether or not it's effective, I probably don't think so. But yeah, I mean, this is a real solid robot. I think with a little bit of intake tuning, this is kind of what we go back to. If you had, a few hours to prototype, I think a lot of these designs would have come out a little bit more effective.
Definitely. All right, that's moving us to our 12th ranked team, which is Team 235. And forgive me on these names. I'm going to try. Oh, sorry. We have the 13th ranked team, which is Team 210, made up of Thomas Clemmer and Jacob Williams for FRC 4561.
So Team 210, I thought this was a pretty cool robot. I'm not sure, but I think this might be our highest ranked robot that actually can't do the game board according to their scouting sheet. They went with the 4 Omni drive, which is, rocking that 71-79 style drive to be able to zip around the field. I think it was an interesting decision. It might be a little bit of a struggle in this game because you're trying to line up with a little bit more of a precise target on both ends when you're lining up with the switch. It was that big 3-foot by 4-foot target. But it'll definitely let you maneuver around the field. You're never going to get stuck in any way. So it has those advantages to it. This robot was also really detailed. All the electronics were included. Their fasteners, their belts, their polycord, everything was going on there, which was pretty good. So as I said, it'll struggle not being able to score on the game board, but it seemed like it's going to be really effective low goaler. One comment against it, this arm is going to be pivoting back and forth the whole match. It doesn't look like it has any sort of brake or counterweight or anything like that. So all that load on that arm pivoting back and forth the entire match, it might start to keep those motors up a little bit as they're basically running at stall in different positions for an entire match.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to take a look at. A brake would go a long way. All right, so I got a little excited with team that came in the 12th ranked spot, and that's Team 235, made up of Hyung-Zoo Huang and Junhee Lee from FRC 694.
You crushed it, Sam. I think.
Thank you.
Well done. This is a robot I thought was kind of interesting. It's a kind of a player station feeder to game board specialist, not a floor pickup specialist. Their intake looks a little weird for somebody who might, think about doing that. It looks almost a little 1323-esque.
Whoa, stop there.
Like 50 axles on the intake. Not quite sure.
That works sometimes.
But yeah, overall great level of detail. I thought I like the slanted elevator. As Garrison said earlier, I rewarded teams who kind of reached up and then fed down into the board as opposed to teams who went straight up and then kind of had to eject forward. I think that's going to be a more consistent way to score into this game board. And this team is able to do that for sure. On top of that, they added the climber. Other than the loading concerns that I had, given their kind of vertical shaft rolling intake, I think this robot could have been very effective. If they get enough driver practice loading up to the feeder station, definitely going to be a good robot for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to move to our last team outside of the top 10, and that's going to be Team 257, made up of Parker Robinson and Craig Hickman.
I definitely think this robot is pretty absurd. I always thought scissor lifts belonged in FTC only. I guess this might have changed my mind, maybe almost. But this one has a crazy, absurd scissor lift. It's actually pretty well machined too while you're at it. And the swerve is pretty cool. The only thing that I grab about the swerve is the wheels of the bolts probably touch the ground at the same time. So unsure if there's enough clearance for it to actually drive around. But beyond that, it's a pretty cool looking robot. It's, has a lot of sides. One could say almost 8 sides. And then I don't know. It was pretty cool. The suction cups were kind of new for me. I think for me personally, I rated this high on creativity. It got like a 5 or 10 or whatever the metric was. But in terms of performance, I don't know how well this robot would do. It was just really cool. It had a really cool SolidWorks feel. A lot of stuff was machined properly. I like the assembly. I like the design. I just don't think it was very effective. It's probably like a 3 on effective for me. Sorry, guys. So
yeah, we're gonna have to build that one and check that out.
First Updates Now FRC is produced in partnership with viewers like you. Want to be our boss? Tell us what we're worth and have a say in how our shows are ran? Visit our Patreon to pledge your support at patreon.com/funfrc